gorillas! Hello, my baby gorillas! And we're back in business. Got some very interesting things. Again, press can't stay away from me. Absolutely love me. Can't take any more. Le Pen calls to expel Islamists after latest terror attack. Well, that's another police. Another France police officer stabbed. I think they tried to cut her head off. Attacker shot dead. Authorities say 49-year-old French police officer has been stabbed to death. And that fellow officers near French police officer was stabbed to death inside her police station nearby the historic Chateau in Paris. And fellow officers shot and killed at the scene. Yeah, although he was shouting Allah Akbar, so we'll just try and cover this up as well. A national police spokesman told investigators we look into whether there might have been a link to terrorism, even though he was shouting Allah Akbar. Not to prejudge anything here. Not that there's been a slew of people being murdered in France, but anti-terrorist prosecutor said it's not currently involved. We are in a state of Carol Olive, Vice. The attack took place southwest of Paris, just inside the police station, quiet residential area of the town. After 750 metres and now there's big problems in Pakistan as well. I was watching Harris Sultan, and the Islamists might be starting a potential civil war in Pakistan. Apparently there's quite a large liberal. I didn't realise how large the liberal part of Pakistan was. I knew there was one, but I just didn't know how large it was. And so again, French Prime Minister Jean Castex, Jared Armenian. Don't forget, the whole bringing in the mass immigration was started by the French. It was it started the Barcelona process, the open door immigration policy, the Union of the Mediterranean, and this is the outcome of what they've actually done here. And the other top officials visited the scene of the attack to show France has seen attacks against the police in the past, including by Islamic extremists. I don't know who the other one was from. That's that. What's my baby gorilla saying? Nothing yet. 1, 2 people. Yeah, the numbers seem to be down a lot. So God, uh, Danny decided to write an article. Regards to me, come on. Insight why Govan Hill community has trusted Nicola Sturgeon to. I've never known a community like this for people getting involved. Activist, party activist Jim Monaghan, as we meandered along Calder Street, Glasgow's most culturally vibrant. Oh, is it culturally vibrant? Yeah, nice neighbourhood. Garavelli. Under a crimson sky, a shop dazzling array of fruit, tomatoes, lemons, plastic bowls, vivid black lives matter brightened up once drab walls, Italian cafe, African restaurants, and Turkish kebabs titillate the eyes and behind. But the street, hard hats go in and out as regeneration work finally gets underway after 20 years of campaign. Such a thrill to see. Down the streets, a man dressed in a shalwar kamzi and skull cap, crimson drapes, when lorries stop to pick up rubbish. It lies in Glasgow's south side. The constituency of Nicola Sturgeon has held since Glasgow's south side is one of Scotland's most diverse. Ibrox and Govan, which my great grandfather was a shipyard worker as well, a plater, gang leader. It takes on Strathbungo. A gang leader means he was in charge of gangs of labourers, not gangs as we know it. Strathbungo with Irish, Italian, and Jewish. That road, which garner the greatest attention. 52 nationalities, 32 languages, some friction is inevitable. Several thousand Roma, one of the most landlords willing to cram large families into a purely maintained properly. What is the fact that Sturgeon Sturgeon has made it in recent years. Govan Hill Now, they've said the far right in Govanhill has found itself at the centre of success and often unfounded. Well, I didn't make founded or unfounded. I actually read things that were in the papers. So, unfounded, it was. I had no first-hand knowledge. Stories. I mean, I think these are becoming well documented. It's not the fact that I think it's questionable whether you can call these unfounded. I think it suggests that maybe other journalists out with the Guerilla TV channel have done minimal journalism to actually see whether these are founded or not. They're quite happy just to disparage anybody who does do the journalism as far right. Now, I haven't gone in depth and gone into what I've done is taken other people's journalism and seen other in Glasgow being covered up by the SNP. I don't have a massive insight because I haven't done the journalism to actually go right in. But I would suggest not many other journalists have done that either. And some have actually actively covered it up. They're disparaging people for being far right. No one ever wrote national as First Minister, and then it became Govanhill. I suggest that on the streets there was words about Govanhill. I remember things being said about Govanhill a way back. I mean, it may be coming to a head just now, but I think people have allowed the situation to fester. Because it's been allowed to fester, have really had a free hand in not actually doing anything for the people in Govanhill. You had all the stuff about the children being sold for sex. Well, I mean, is that true or is it not? What are the police doing about it? These are actual real questions. These are not far right or far left or anything in between, even from a centrist like myself. These are just questions that should be getting asked of the police, of the politicians. These are proper political and journalistic questions that require to be asked. To push them aside and call them far right or conspiratorial or anything else is demeaning the underlying issues that may or may not be happening here. Which, as far as I can work out, urban myth, right? So none of it's true. Everybody, even the Sun, the Express, even the convictions, even though one of my baby gorillas said there was people picked up in Uddingston, none of it's true, right? I see. Other people commenting on the Guerilla TV channel saying something similar has happened in Govanhill, but it's all just an urban myth. Real life stories that Danny Garavelli is just dismissing. Why doesn't she go and do some investigative journalism and see if there's any truth to these? But it's easier just to dismiss it as urban myths, apparently, says political commentator and Southside resident Anne. President Bobby election, the focus on Glasgow's south side and Govanhill in particular has been amplified by the Anasawa and Britain Freedom. So Sawa's not the extremist, it's just the party. Now, I don't know anything zero about the British Freedom Party. I know that Jada Francis is in it. The actual politics, the underlying politics of it, I've never met anybody from the British. I don't, but some of them are meant to have come out of the British National Party, but I still don't even know what the British National Party to do a deep dig, not just far right, let's dismiss them that I've had. They actually might be on the left of the political spectrum. As I told you, nationalism is not a left-right thing. In every four parts of the political spectrum, nationalism, even ethno-nationalism, is part of each parts of the political compass. So depending on if Jada Francis is a social capitalist, that's what's going to differentiate between left and right. Not whether she does or doesn't believe in Islam. I don't know if she's an extreme. Get Jada Francis to do a political compass test. Get Sarwar to do his. So I think Sarwar is increasingly becoming very obvious as some sort of social democrat, very much in the mould of funds and these. Not exactly the representation of the working man. I would suggest that Mr. Sarwar had a privileged upbringing over the years as well. Maybe that's maybe he is one of the people that they're talking about. Not obviously not white privilege, but there must be other sorts of privilege as well. No. The racist ideology of white privilege to stand against her. Sarwar is unlikely to make serious inroads into Sturgeon's 9,593 majority. General election, Sturgeon lost to Sarwar's father, Mohammed Sarwar, in Govan. Sarwar became the first Muslim MP and encountered racism through his political career. Didn't really know that. Didn't know much about Mr. It was a bit before my. Well, it wasn't before my time, but it wasn't my life. It has been targeted. Oh, I targeted him. Accidentally bumping into Mr. Sarwar's now me target. Oh wow, that's incredible. If I accidentally bump into somebody that's a target, me target. Out walking. A few weeks ago, he was harassed. So me asking journalistic questions from Danny Garavelli. So if Danny Garavelli asks me political questions, I can just say, oh, I'm not answering them, you're just harassing me. Is that how it works? I've already written on, just to clarify with Garavelli, that I don't appreciate getting called far right as I'm a libertarian liberal or any other human other than the human race. The deliberate framing of me as something I'm not, with no ability for a court to judge this because the lawyer will take the case, is alarming. I am not sure I would describe the Guerilla TV asking Mr. Sarwar as harassment. So that means any journalist asking any political questions now can fit under the word harassment. Was it harassment or even libel when the Herald implied that I was at a David Irvine event that I wasn't at? Not sure the Herald's comment of. I'm not sure that the Herald comment I was allowed to starve in the UAE. That's another one. So the Guerilla TV is a limited company and we have as much right to and discussing child protection rights is now I've put all that in there as well. So obviously being maligned as usual. A few weeks ago, he was harassed. That's the word for journalism now, by former Brexit Party candidate David Ballantyne, who made remarks about Pakistan child laws. I'm gobsmacked. I have to keep bringing it up. I'm not going to go right deep, but Pakistan preventing from banning child marriage, which would be child rape here. Child marriage would be child rape because it is un-Islamic. So it's independent. That's where I got it from. I actually said it to Mr. Sarwar when I was actually speaking to him as well. So I don't know why she couldn't have done her own research on this. An alleged abuse of asylum seekers in Glasgow. I mean, it's coming out of mainstream public. While gang large-scale asylum seeker grooming gang in Glasgow, but kept it secret. And don't forget, the Express did the other article 5 years before. So I don't know what our point is, though. What's the point? So are you saying because you don't agree with me, maybe because you're part of the globalist cabal? Don't forget the media is simping for the gimps. They're simping for the gimps. Don't forget they're protecting it. That they can write all this. So these are already out there. I didn't suddenly make it up. I'm not part of any far right organisation and never have been. I've been in mainstream political. In fact, I'm actually more of a centrist than anything else. A centrist libertarian, a libertarian liberal, which I've already commented on. So it's in the papers. It's not just fiction. Alleged abuse of children by asylum seekers in Glasgow. I'm not going to read all of this article because I can't. Allegations. So this is in the Scotsman. Allegations of child abuse echoes Roma in Govan Hill. These allegations, which have been investigated repeatedly by the police. Well, it just says there it was covered up. The Sun says the police covered it up, which I would suggest it was probably covered up by the politicians. The political class are using the police to cover up these things, and me asking questions, I get targeted because the politicians know that they're covering it up, and the media are playing defence for the politicians. Luckily the Guerilla TV channel's here. Luckily. Unlike Danny any of these, the abuse of children is obviously not Danny Garavelli or to the Scotsman for that matter. The allegations of abuse echo, and it can just be dismissed as me being racist. Oh, that's racist. How's it racist if it's in the papers? How, if I'm getting my information from periodicals, is that me being racist? I'm taking the questions directly out of. So you're saying that the underlying newspapers are racist? This is in today's, which has been investigated repeatedly by the police, are spread via Facebook. Oh, they spread via Facebook, just like you're spread via the internet. I don't really think it's that great a medium, that bad a medium. You're obviously writing papers, but I would suggest that the written public time scale now, I think they're on a death decline. I would be very surprised if the periodicals now got out of the death spiral and now else is not going to be electronic. Are spread via Facebook and by the vlogger Alex. Well, I think Alex was quite interesting, some of the stuff he said. He certainly highlighted a lot of things that were going on there. And now the focus, because of the election, is on Govan Hill and some of the appalling conditions that these people had to, the people of Govan Hill have had to live in. Claimed to be Black Lives Matters murals. Again, a Marxist group. So I'm not quite sure. And they had the although it was Black Fist, the communist fist on the mural. Imagine it was a White Lives Matter with a guy doing Ezekiel. This is the SJW. This is what the SJWs are going to have. It's going to be one rule for one for another. The mural had been vandalised and spat on. I'm not reading there. Well, I'll read a wee bit more. Francine. So I'm now getting limped in for me doing journalism with other people who obviously Danny Garavelli finds unacceptable. Francine does not. By-election in less than half the number polled by the Monster Raving Loonian Party. Use a platform to spout bigotry. But it's not bigotry, these children being targeted by Muslim gangs. We already know, we've already got unrefutable proof that Muslim child rape gangs are operating all over the UK. But that's not bigotry. So anybody, and I don't know if Jada Francis is, but that's not bigotry. Right. So the deliberate targeting and raping of non-Muslims by Muslims is not bigoted. Danny Gravelli has not brought up anything to do with them. I don't think she's written an article on it. Well, I don't know. I've not read a full back catalogue. But if Danny Gravelli would like to actually even come on the Guerilla TV channel, I'll do a one-to-one interview with her anytime she wants to come on and have a chat. I'm not involved with Jada Francis. I'm not involved with anything else. The political party, the new political party, is going to be a centrist party, centrist libertarian. I left the Scottish Libertarian Party because they were on the right and I wanted a more centrist approach. It's one rule for one for another. That's what we're getting now. One rule for me, another for thee, and attempting to inflame existing tensions. Well, maybe can I suggest that maybe the existing tensions is the fact that the political class are covering it up through the actual crimes are being committed and going for non-hate crime nonsense. And this new Humza Useless's hate without tackling the fact that Islam is a child rapist death cult. So how are you going to tackle that underlying issue without actually saying you're spouting bigotry? You're then caught in a catch-22. So you can't tackle the underlying issue. Hey, how you doing, Johnny boy? Hi, Jimmy, how you doing? And the Mason, of course, I knew they were going to do that anyway. I want a picture of Vladimir Putin, and I want to have a booze cruise. Wait, and invite Vlad. Hunters or Russian flag winner. Yeah. Oh, I've not even brought this over. That's probably going to be a lot better. See what I was. Is anything in between, even from this post. As regeneration work finally gets underway after 20 years of campaign. There seems to be some sort of mic drop when they're actually speaking on this. I don't know if this is better, guys, but that's quite interesting. There seems to be a drop if the mic can actually hear it. There seems to be a sort of drop from the mic. I don't know why that is. So let's go into this. So thank you very much, Danny. That's another well-balanced article from the press in Scotland. That's really great. I'm just going to get bigger. So here we go. Sawar says he's tough enough to take on Nicola. So apparently the Labour Party are crashing in the polls. They're down to about 15% in the actual list, and they're down on the constituency. They weren't going to win the constituency because the SNP are so high in the constituency. They were highly unlikely to get any. They might get one or if that in a specific constituency, same as the Conservatives, but they're going down. The votes for alternative parties are massively up, like the Alba Party, the Scottish Libertarian Party are up. Even Georgie Porgy's Unity for All party. So every one of these are up, and these are it's getting massive there as well. I hope that's better, John. I don't know what it sounds like just now, but I hope it's better. Let me know if it's not. There seems to be mic fade outs on the mic, so when I'm talking, I've noticed that there it seems to fade. I need to see what's actually causing that. There seems to be some sort of drop on when I'm actually talking about things on the mic. So let's look at the UN. So Nicola Sturgeon is one to bring in all these various UN charters, but she doesn't want to bring in the UN genocide prevention and responsibility to protect UN treaty. So ethnic cleansing. Let me go back. I think I've got. So this is the same one. So obviously the Armenian genocide by the Muslim Turks, and also the Greek genocide in Byzantine as well, where they killed about 500,000 Greeks, and I don't know what happened in Cyprus as well. So obviously the Greek genocide in Cyprus and in Byzantine as well has not been acknowledged by the Turks either. I think Biden made movements to actually move towards the acknowledgement of the Armenian genocide. We're all very supportive Armenians as well. Again, losing part of their country through Muslim aggression as well. So, Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Crimes of Genocide Convention is an instrument of international law that codified for the first time the crime of genocide. Genocide Convention was a human rights treaty adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations on the 9th of December 1948 and signified the international community's commitment. So don't forget, largest genocides in the world has been by Islam, 300 million people dead under Islam, then by communism and the far left as well. Killing their own people, 45 million people. I think the single largest one was the people killed in communist China under the CCP that George Galloway seems to want to simp for. So 45 million are up to 60 million people dead in China. And now they're trying, obviously, with Antifa and Black Lives Matter, they're trying to bring in the far left through the back door that have caused 100 million people's deaths. I don't know if the Scottish Government are going to bring in lessons for children with regards to the amount of people who have been murdered under the far left. Also, National Socialism. Fascism didn't actually kill that many people. Fascism, as weird as it sounds, because it's conflated with National Socialism, potentially wasn't a genocidal, although it sided with the National Socialists, wasn't in itself and as an ideology a genocidal ideology, which may sound strange, but there isn't really much. There may be smaller sort of things from fascism, but not under National Socialism. And don't forget, National Socialism was just identity politics for white people. The same thing happened. Don't forget, the Frankfurt School came prior to the rise of National Socialism. So if you were getting this hate white people thing, the rise of National Socialism might have been a counter to largely Jewish, and I think there was the Jewish communists leaders of the German Communist Party were Jewish as well, and obviously Hitler rejected Bolshevism and capitalism as well, because he saw that all as a Jewish conspiracy. And the Frankfurt School went and took their critical theory to Columbia University, and then it's permeated throughout the rest of the academia, and now we've got Antifa, who are anarcho-communists and anarcho-syndicalists, who are now in bed with BLM, which are Marxists. So there is difference. These are the BLM are authoritarian Marxists as well, and which I think AOC certainly is wanting to move towards that. And so America is now moving towards communism, certainly towards socialism, but if not towards violent communism. And Joe Biden has done nothing to stamp down. He thinks it's only an idea. Stamp down on an ideology so far that's killed 100 million people. A girl said to me, "Oh, that only happened under Stalin." No, it happened in every communist country: Cambodia, Vietnam, China, Ukraine, when they were all starved to death. All of the Eastern European countries, there was political persecution. And this is what Nicola Sturgeon will eventually get done with their intersectionality and SJW. One rule for one for another. And the people that are going to be most affected are going to be the indigenous white male population through the actual totem pole of SJW nonsense. That's where the actual real oppression will come in through this, because there'll be one rule for one for another. Convention, this is why I think she's not one to bring in the Convention on Genocide, because if her actions are seen to be genocidal. Don't forget, I thought this was very interesting, and see if I can get this. So it says end femicide. I didn't know we had a femicide in Scotland. In fact, I would actually welcome more women in Scotland. I think we've got a declining population. But I'll have to find this part, so we may have to look a wee bit at this video.
Well, we don't have any backing, we just...
This way because I'm out walking again, and...
Let's skip through it to see if we can find it.
And these children were in in homes, and these Muslim asylum seekers allegedly were in actually taking advantage of these children that were in care homes.
Well, we're definitely not into anything like that. That sounds atrocious.
And obviously Islam is very much pro-rape, so that promotes rape and
there is no particular group of people.
Groups, but it's not promoted in all groups. You don't need to be an Islamic scholar to read the books, though. Things that I've already just said to you that are true, who are Muslims or ex-Muslims. So it's not like this is revelating news. Muhammad used to have sex. If you...
I'm interested in letting everybody know about the universality of this experience.
Yeah.
Girls to girls, it's an appalling situation, and we want to see the end of street harassment and increased sense of safety and confidence for women and any minority group.
Do you know, I've lived in Scotland obviously nearly a long time, let's just say a long time, and the amount of street harassment, I've seen more street harassment visually by women to other women than I have done from men to women. I think street harassment by some ethnic minorities is coming in because of the culture. But I personally, I'm not saying it doesn't go on, but I mean, I'm talking about my lived experience, that actually viewing things, and I used to be a bouncer as well, so I used to do the doors in multiple.
I'll just say that's actually not my experience. Hello, my experience is that I've had 39 years of sexual harassment and intimidation.
Now, when you say you've had sex, my definition might be too different.
A little bit like an argument.
No, I'm actually just getting you to define your parameters.
So that everybody should be safe.
The vagaries of these general... You said for me you were having an argument, and I thought we were just having a conversation. So it just shows you that your opinion of what you think I'm doing might be vastly different.
We're able to talk about that, and that's fine. Yeah, that's good.
No, but what I'm asking... No, sorry. I'm asking for the specific... No, it doesn't happen so much now, but women do it as well. And the thing about it is, because obviously I think you believe in equality, don't you? Yeah, well, what men don't get the right of equality. Not that I would actually take any of these women to court, but the fact that it does happen by women, it's happened to me multiple times, and I've had also women lie about me and exaggerate circumstances or change circumstances to actually lie, that have had devastating effects. Doesn't mean that I don't believe that women have had problems similar, but I'm just saying, if you believe in equality, then surely my lived experiences, I should... do you think I should be charging these women then?
I think that's a personal choice, but you've got a right to safety and to feel safe. And if you're not comfortable with it, of course, do what is it within the law?
Well, no, probably not the way But so tell me more.
No, I think what I was trying to say there is that even as a man, if I went and spoke to the police about these, now I wouldn't do it anyway, so I'm not going to do it anyway. But as a man, I don't think the police would take. I think the police would take less action for me going and complaining than they would do on other genders, shall we say. I think I'll get less action from the police, and I've already had complaints against the police's conduct, and nothing's happened with it as well, completely devoid of actually doing anything against themselves over false allegations.
About the street harassment, it says boys will be held accountable. So just now we've got a declining population.
Listen to this.
And the criminalisation, we're having women, and women are ultimately just now in this day and age the ultimate gatekeepers for sex and sexuality. So we've now got a declining population that's falling right off the cliff. What are we going to do?
Cliff, David, spit it out.
To increase the birth rate. Obviously, if we're not wanting harassment in boys, what's the story for actually increasing birth rates in Scotland?
That's an argument. I don't feel the need to increase the birth rate.
I don't feel the need to increase the birth rate. So we've got a declining birth rate. So on the trajectory, other than the population replacement that we've got through the use of mass immigration, this woman doesn't feel the need to increase the birth rate. So again, I'll come back to the UN Convention. So if we've got a declining birth rate, then women don't have a responsibility to increase the birth rate, then this is going to cause us major political and economic issues, and also be involved in potentially our own genocide, because women like this are advocating for street harassment, which could mean unless it's defined very clearly, and we already know through Humza Useless's bill they don't want to define things very clearly so that they can accuse you of basically anything and try and get you convicted and put in jail again, then affecting your life chances through jobs, through other things, by them actually now thought policing you.
Well, see, that's probably different. So, can I just ask, I don't mean to be personal, are you a lesbian?
Oh my goodness, I feel like we're getting to really...
No, I'm just asking.
So I'm heterosexual. I don't see the big deal. There's obviously an issue, an underlying issue there. If there is lesbians pushing policy because they don't want to have children on heterosexual women, then the heterosexual women think that all these ideas are actually good ideas. We have to find out if it's lesbians pushing these ideas that are anti-men, anti-family, and whether they're contributing to with their street harassment thing, contributing to the decline in our birth rate, which again goes back. Aye, that's better, is it? Good, mate, good, thanks. So, the decline in our birth rate. So, back to the convention. Convention on the prevention. So don't forget, if they are raping children, so Muslims, and I would suspect, although Islam is not a race-based ideology, it is a religion and a political ideology, that our political class are facilitating it. It's our political class that signed us up to the Union of the Mediterranean, the Barcelona process without telling us, and the UN Compact in Marrakesh. And Nicola Sturgeon and the Conservatives every one of the main political parties are for open borders, which in itself will over a period of time would ethnically cleanse and people from parts of the society. And I think I just read there, like for instance, Govan Hill, that 93% of the community is of Asian descent. So it's obviously congregates into pockets. Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Crimes of Genocide, Genocide Convention, is an instrument of international law that codified for the first time the crime of genocide. The Genocide Convention was the human rights treaty adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations on the 9th of December 1948, and signified the international community's commitment to never again, after the atrocities committed during the Second World War. Its adoption marked a crucial step towards the development of international human rights and international crime law as we know it today. According to the Genocide Convention, genocide is a crime that takes place both in a time of war and as well as in a time of peace. So I would suggest that the globalists might be doing this in a time of peace. The definition of the crime of genocide as set out in the convention has been widely adopted at both national and international level, including 1998 Rome Statutes of the International Criminal Court, ICC. Learn more about the definitions of the crimes of genocide. Important, the convention establishes on state parties the obligation to take measures to prevent and to punish the crime of genocide, including by enacting relevant legislation and punishing the perpetrators. So it could only take a small, like every Nazi in Nazi Germany didn't gas the Jews. A lot of Nazis didn't even know about it. Not every Muslim is a terrorist, but they were still following the ideology that did that led to that. Not every Turk was involved in the Armenian genocide, but the state influenced that, and I would suggest the underlying religion, because these were all, I think they were Christian Armenians that were living in Turkey, which could have been actually Greater Armenia at that time. Armenia's shrunk quite substantially. And they were all just taken into the desert and killed. Whether they are constantly responsible rulers, public officials, or private individuals, Article 4, the obligation in addition to prohibit not. So in Scotland you're going to increasingly get less and less opportunities, less and less places in the government, and this is what Nicola Sturgeon's obviously wanting to do for the globalists, in addition to promote not to commit genocide, have been considered as norms of international customary law, and therefore binding on all states, whether or not they ratify the convention, the Genocide Convention. Raphael Lemkin developed the term in response to the Nazi policies of systematic murder of the Jewish people during the Holocaust and other instances in history where targeted actions have been aimed at the destruction of a particular group of people.
It will be recalled that in December 1946, the General Assembly, by unanimous vote,
and it seems like that's what they're doing in America with all this white privilege, and it seems like the people in America are being targeted based on their race as well. So that's under the Joe Biden administration and under the Gang of Four. They seem to be bringing out racist policies now, and to indoctrinate your children. I think they're doing it here in the UK as well.
That genocide is a crime under international law, which the civilized world condemns, and for the commission of which principals and accomplices are punishable. The draft Convention on Genocide, which is now before this Assembly, is the end product of 2 years of careful and arduous work.
Says here, the convention defines genocide as certain acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part, a national, ethnic or racial or religious group.
History is filled with tragic chapters of hatred and persecution that have led to mass violence against persecuted minorities. That is why the world must be ever alert to the warning signs of genocide and act quickly and early to avert it.
I do not wish to repeat what's already been said here. My aim today is to share our story in the hope of speaking to the failures in Srebrenica, the lessons to be learned, and our ongoing commitment to honor genocide victims and survivors.
How did we get there? How do we get to the point where an entire nation is chanting, "We will exterminate you"? It was a collective failure, but I think we have a chance for a collective response in a positive way to change what has happened.
Genocide Convention obliges parties to prevent and punish genocide.
After the Holocaust, the world seemed eager to find a more cooperative path. The founding of the United Nations was one expression of that moment. The UN Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the Genocide Convention enshrined the commitment to equality and human rights. And humankind dared to believe that tribal identities would diminish in importance. We were wrong.
The convention, the Genocide Convention, represents international community's commitment to never again but remain at risk. In 2004, the Secretary General appointed special advisors mandated to monitor the situations of concern and raise alarms where there is risk of genocide.
Prevention is something which is key to make this world a better place. We have all to stand up and fight against these scourges.
Obviously, Adolf Hitler received his sort of inspiration from the Armenian genocide, which wasn't condemned, or there wasn't any condemnation, or the Greek genocide in Turkey as well, or what was Byzantine, where I think the original Byzantinians were kicked off the land as well.
United Nations and the principles that it stands gives us hope that we could do things together in a peaceful way and allow the world to finally put these Holocausts behind us.
The United Nations calls on the member states that are not yet part to the Genocide Convention to join and take a stand against genocide. That's UN. The basic facts: Genocide Convention signed on December 9th, 1948. Location: Paris, France. GA resolution effective from the 12th of January 1951. Parties 152 as of July 2019. Party Mauritius, July 2019. Depository, the Secretary General of the United Nations. Interstate Dispute, National Court of Justice. List of countries that ratified the UN Convention. I think Britain has. I'm not going to read out all the list. You can just... I suspect it has. Kingdom. 30th of January 1970. Status of membership. The Genocide Convention has been ratified by 152 states as of July 2019. Other 42 members UN member states have yet to do so. For those, 19 are from Africa, 17 from Asia, 6 from America. Check the map. Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide calls upon the United Nations member states that are not party to the Genocide Convention to ratify or accede to it as a small matter of priority, so the Genocide Convention becomes an instrument of universal membership. States' obligations under Genocide Convention. Now, I don't know why when you tap on this, there's nothing there. Let's try on a different browser. Sometimes that works. International Court Justice Report of Judgments concerning applications of Convention on the crime of genocide, 2007. Concerning application of the Convention of Bosnia and Herzegovina and Serbia and Montenegro. So, I mean, this is a way back to the Turks invading Southeast Europe and the animosity there between Islam and the Christians, and obviously being able to convert some Albanians and some, I don't know if they were remnants from the colonisation of Turkey, and they used to enslave and kill non-Christian or non-Muslims as well. So obviously the Muslims had invaded, and it was really the Serbs were one of the, and even Albanians, Skanderbeg used to fight against the Muslim invaders into Europe as well, who were enslaving and taking back to what was Byzantine, but now Turkey, enslaving Slavs, basically, where the word comes from. So these Muslims were enslaving them. Don't forget, obviously, the white slave trade that came from North Africa as well, Muslim as well. Obviously, on the east coast there was the Islamic slave trade, and down the east coast of Africa. And in the west, something that they don't actually tell you about is it was Africans and Muslims that were enslaving other Africans and selling them as slaves. They don't really cover that in the way that they're going to try and brainwash your children into the new white guilt that will be the anti-racist training. There was actually Muslims that were enslaving children, enslaving Africans, as well as other Africans, and selling them. There was, what was it? Malaria. So the life expectancy for a European in sub-Saharan Africa was 1 year. So that's why there was no colonisation of Africa prior to the invention of anti-malaria drugs. So I don't know if there's any proof that I knew that some of the Portuguese were trading with parts of Africa. I don't know if there's any proof that the Africans were there was any Europeans that were actually enslaving on the continent and enslaving Africans, or whether that was just to purchase and exchange slaves that had already been enslaved by the Muslims and the other Africans. So that's something that is, I don't know that. I'm not a West African scholar, but certainly the white slave trade came from Africa as well, and obviously the East African slave trade as well. So, and obviously Islam promotes slavery and sexual slavery as well, which still happens today, because obviously once that society becomes the dominant, if Islam became dominant in the UK, then they would carry out Sharia law and other aspects of Islam which they know about. Their government seems to have decided that's going to be our future. On the March 1993, the government of the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the effect from the 14th of December 1995, Bosnia and Herzegovina filed in the Register of Court on application instituting processes against the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, Serbia and Montenegro, and with effect on the 3rd of June 2006, the Republic of Serbia, see paragraph 67 and 79. But I don't think they take on board what's actually happened to the Slavs by the Turkish Muslims invaders over centuries. None of that, because what they do is they just take the point here, but they don't look back on obviously what's happened prior to that, and to actually see what may have been the underlying reasons. Sometimes there is no reasons, but there are sometimes reasons behind certain things that happen. I'm certainly not condoning it in the slightest, but to look at the historical reasons and not just things in an isolation. That's maybe because there may have been that happened to the Serbs. I just think you should get a bigger picture. So, obligations not to commit genocide, Article 1. Obligations to prevent genocide, Article 1, which in accordance with the CIG has an extraterritorial scope. Obligations to punish genocide, Article 1. Obligations to enact necessary legislation to give effect to the proposal of the Convention, Article 5. Obligations to ensure the effective penalties are provided for persons found guilty of criminal conduct according to the Convention, Article 5. Obligations to try persons charged with genocide in charged with genocide in competent trial of the state and the territory of which the act was committed, or by the International Penal Tribunal with accepted jurisdiction, Article 4. Obligations to grant extradition when genocide charges are involved in accordance with the laws and treaties in force, Article 4, partly related to protection grants by international human rights law, prohibiting where there is a real risk of flagrant human rights violations in the state. International Day. Every year on the 9th of December, the UN nations mark the adoption of Genocide Convention, which is also the International Day of commemorations on the dignity of victims of the crimes of genocide and prevention of the crime. Watch the latest event marked the 7th anniversary of the convention. The rest of that, genocide. When to act, and the statement. Sorry. When to act, a state's obligation and responsibilities regarding genocide by the Centennial Project in June 14th, 2013. An introduction. In order to liberate mankind from the odious scourge of genocide, states are under an obligation to prevent the punish acts the crime of genocide. Article 1 of the Genocide Convention provides that the contracting parties confirm that genocide, whether committed in time of peace or in time of war, is a crime under international law, and where they undertake to prevent and punish and to be punished. The double obligation to prevent and punish genocide, as contained in Article 1 of the Convention, is reinforced in Article and articulated in the other provisions of the Convention. Thus, Article 3 lists the different acts that are punishable under the Convention, namely genocide, conspiracy to commit genocide, directly the public incite and commit genocide, attempt to commit genocide, and complicity in genocide, whereas Article 8 recognises the right of state parties to call upon the contempt organs of the United Nations to take appropriate action for the prevention of the suppression of genocidal acts. In addition, Articles 4 identifies the participants that are responsible to punish, i.e. constitutionally responsible rulers, political officials and private individuals, while Article 5 indicates the mechanisms, legislative enactments through which is appropriate and effectively penalises must be meted out for the persons guilty of genocide and other prohibited acts. Finally, Act 4 and Act 6 and Act 7 focus on the criminal proceedings that are related to the obligation to punish genocide perpetrators. It is very important to note that the International Court of Justice, in its advisory opinion on reservations to Genocide Convention in 28th of May 1951, the Article 1 of Genocide Convention establishes two independent obligations: obligations to prevent and obligation to punish. Despite a clear link between these two forms, they are distinct from one another. The direct implications of the distinction is that the responsibility of the state for failure to prevent of genocide may exist separately from concomitant with its responsibilities for failure to punish perpetrators thereof, and vice versa. Of Article 1, the scope of the obligation to prevent and to publish genocide were developed and elaborated by the works of three important judicial organs: the International Court of Justice, judicial organ of the United Nations in terms of Article 92, and the United Nations Charter, the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavian, established by the United Nations Security Council Resolution 827 in 1993, and the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, established by the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1955 of 1984. The next paragraphs will briefly give an account of by those international instances in their interpretation of what was the obligations to prevent and to punish imply. Obligations to prevent genocide in series of judgments rendered on the 13th of September 1993 and on the 26th 2007. in a case against the application of genocide on the prevention of and punishment of the crime of genocide, Bosnia and Herzegovina versus Yugoslavia, Serbia and Montenegro. The International Court of Justice, ICJ, indicated that the scope of the obligation to prevent is limited to specific evil genocide, consisting of the acts referred to in Article 2 and 3 of the conventions. Obviously, the Ukrainian genocide as well. These are all the prohibited acts committed with the necessary intent to destroy the protected group in whole or in part. Could potentially apply to Nicola Sturgeon and others. Act amounting to conspiracy, incitement, attempt or complicity in genocide. In addition, the court held that temporary justification of genocide covers the period when the state learns or should have learned of the existence of serious risk that genocide will be committed, and to make all necessary measures. So if you've got an open door immigration, Nicola Sturgeon's obviously advocating, and Boris Johnson, and that then brings about the destruction in part and in full of the underlying people. Will that count as genocide? Will that be considered genocide by the court? Is not territorially limited to by convention. That is to say that each state party to the Genocide Convention is called upon to prevent genocide within all as well as its territorial borders. A certain number of parameters are taken into consideration in assessing whether or not a state has effectively discharged its responsibilities to prevent genocide. Such parameters are either material or mental. However, the determining factor is this assessment is the capacity for the state concerned to influence effectively the actions of relevant persons, and evaluation of such capacity includes the following elements: the geographical distance of the state concerned for the scene of the events, the strength of the political and other links between the state and the main actors in the events, the state's legal position vis-a-vis the situation and persons facing the danger or reality of genocide, and 4, the state's level of awareness of the immenseness of the crime. Imminence of the crime. Concerning the latter, it has been shown that the state was aware, or should normally have been aware, of the serious danger that the acts of genocide would commit. Now, don't forget, genocide is not just about the extermination using physical force. Genocide can be acts against the people, like Nicola Sturgeon's doing, to favour one group above another, to actually facilitate the genocide against, in her case, her own people. So don't forget, and obviously not having, that other woman said she's no requirement to have children, and then bringing in other groups to abuse the other group, while at the same time making laws through the hate speech bills that don't protect all the people, in fact actually discriminate actively against the indigenous population. So all of these collectively could see Nicola Sturgeon potentially out for under genocide rules. It's not just about mass murdering the people, it's about creating an environment where you actively discriminate against the certain groups, in this case the indigenous population. And that's not me saying that, that's actually how it's stated in the convention here, in the UN convention. It's not just about this. Let's now turn briefly, and that's why I think Nicola Sturgeon isn't wanting to bring this into Scots law, because she knows there might be a problem there. Thanks, certain groups in this. So, 3 people watching, my goodness, she must be all out on this beautiful sunny day. Let's now turn briefly to the nature and concerns certain actions which states must take to fulfil their prevention obligations. Since the genocide prevention is particularly silent as to what must be done to prevent genocide, then states are free to decide what initiatives to adopt as part of their obligation to prevent genocide under the convention. Such initiatives may include any of the following: educating communities about genocide, dismembering the Genocide Convention, drawing and publishing on any evidence or risk of genocide in foreign countries, adopting national legislation measures, imposing economic, diplomatic, military, travel, etc. Travel, don't forget, we're getting through the pandemic. Sanctions on states that are planning, attempting or committing genocide, etc. If genocide occurs, in spite of the enforcement of such preventative measures, the second form of obligation is activated, which obliges the state concerned to punish the perpetrators thereof. The obligation to punish Genocide Convention Act 6 indicates the basic attitude each state must adopt vis-a-vis genociders. It provides in the regard that persons charged with genocide or any of the other acts enumerated in Article 3 shall be tried by a tribunal of the state and the territory of which the act was committed, or by such international penal tribunal as many have jurisdiction with respect to those contracting parties which shall have accepted its jurisdiction. How should the provision be understood? The first part of the article should state parties in the territory of which genocide or any other acts of genocide, i.e. conspiracy to commit genocide, direct and publicly incitement to commit genocide, attempted to commit genocide, and complicity in genocide has been committed, establishing criminal courts in persecute the persecutors thereof. At the first glance, this seems to imply that states can only prosecute has been committed on their territory. That is not true. Article 6 does not prohibit or prevent states from prosecuting committed in foreign countries by foreign nationals, such as prosecutions can, for instance, be based on the particular principle of universal jurisdiction, which makes it possible for states to prosecute certain particular heinous crimes, even in the absence of any territorial or nationality linked to them. It only constitutes a clear indication that the primary obligation to prosecute rests with the territorial state, i.e. the state to the territory of which the genocide was committed. In the aftermath of the Rwanda genocide, Rwanda authorities have created various criminal courts and tribunals. Don't forget the Scottish Government are trying to cover up cases against the indigenous Scottish people as well. So not only the guy getting stabbed, I mean, there was misinformation about the Muslims stabbing the 6 people in Glasgow, saying there was 3 people they were killed. But then it was hold as well. So all of these things in isolation, but when you start to accumulate them, you see it may be an attack on the indigenous population. The Nicola Sturgeon, the alleged nationalist, obviously she's not, well, no, she's not, says that she's not doing. And then the periodicals then memory hole all. Committed to the territory of Rwanda. Many other states have adopted statutes to Article 6, which explicitly provide not only the territorial jurisdiction, also the universal jurisdiction over genocide. Examples of such statutes include German Code of Criminals Against International Law, Section 1 of which recognises the jurisdiction of German courts over genocide, crimes against humanity and war crimes committed outside the German territory, and to which Germany had no specific link. Likewise, Section 2.1 Dutch International Crimes Act makes provisions for universal for genocide, provide the alleged perpetrator is physically present in the Netherlands. Moreover, Canada's Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act, adopted on 24th of June 2000, sets the basis for universal jurisdictions for genocide. Section 6(s)(1) of this Act reads the following: every person who, either before or after the coming into force of this section, commits outside Canada genocide is guilty of an indictable offence and may be prosecuted for the offence in accordance with Section 8. Many other countries, including France, Switzerland, Spain, Belgium and Austria, have adopted national legislation as required under Genocide Convention Act number 6 that allows for the prosecution of genocide committed outside their territories. Second part of the Act 6 recognises the power of contracting parties to set up international tribunals with jurisdiction over genocide. This provision obligates states parties to the Genocide Convention which has accepted national tribunals to cooperate with it, the International Court of Justice, in the case concerning the application of Genocide Convention, Bosnia and Herzegovina versus Yugoslavia, Serbia and Montenegro. Judgment on the 27th of February 2007 have specified the nature and the content of the obligation and to cooperate with an international tribunal, when it stated that such duties include the requirement to arrest persons accused of genocide who are in the territory, even if the crime and failing prosecution parties, our own courts, that they will hand over for trial by international tribunals. In addition, it appears for the structure of the Article 6, the International Criminal Tribunals is envisaged as a subsidiary forum that shall exist either as an alternative to national penal in case the territorial state fails to establish them, or as a complement, e.g. perpetrator of the Rwandan genocide was prosecuted by both the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda and different national courts and tribunals. The latter concept is introduced in the 1998 International Criminal Court system under the principle of complementarity, which clearly indicates the national tribunals are natural forums to conduct criminal trials. The notorious International Court or Tribunal was jurisdiction over genocide were established in the past. There are ad hoc international criminal trials for former Yugoslavia 1993 and ad hoc International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda 1994 and Permanent International Court, Criminal Court 1999. The obligation to prevent and the obligation to punish constitute therefore the core legal obligation, the violation of which would render other articles of the convention meaningless. meaningless. They are a matrix of genocide conventions in that they inform, shape and contour meanings and implications of the other provisions of the convention. In addition, they provide an indication on the concrete measures that states shall adopt in order to liberate mankind from the odious scourge of genocide. I know these are all a bit heavy, but there was I was trying to get to the part. So, ethnic cleansing. Background. Ethnic cleansing has not been recognised as an independent crime under international law. The term surfaced in the context of the 1990s conflict in the former Yugoslavia, and it's considered to come from a literal translation of Serbia-Croatian expression ethnic. I'm not even going to pronounce that. However, the precise roots of the term of who started using it and why it is still uncertain. The expression ethnic cleansing has been used in resolutions of the Security Council and the General Assembly and has been acknowledged in judgments and indictments of the ICTY, although it did not constitute one of the counts for prosecution. A definition was never provided. Definition: as ethnic cleansing has not been recognised as an independent crime under international law, there is no precise definition of this concept or exact acts to be qualified as ethnic cleansing. A United Nations Commission of Experts mandated to look into the violations of international humanitarian law committed in the former Yugoslavia defined ethnic cleansing in its interim report, rendering an area ethnically homogeneous by using force, intimidation, or removing persons or giving groups from the area. In the final report, S99467, the same commission described ethnic cleansing as a purposeful policy designed by one ethnic or religious group, or I would suggest internally the reverse racism, people within your own group to ethnically cleanse you, so you can be ethnically cleansed with people like Nicola Sturgeon from within your own group, I would suggest as well. A purpose policy designed by one or Nicola Sturgeon ethnic group or within your own ethnic group, like the communists would be like reverse racists, or ethnic group, to remove by violence and terror-inspiring means the civilian population of another ethnic or religious group for certain geographic areas. We can already see that's happening with Antifa and Black Lives Matter, shouting abuse based on their ethnicity in America now. So it can also happen by communists as well. But so there should be a purposeful policy designed by one ethnic group or religious group or political ideology as well. It doesn't have to be just that. The Commission of Experts also stated that the coercive practices like the hate speech bill in Scotland, that's just the sharp end of the wedge, used to remove the civilian population can include murder, torture, arbitrary arrests, which would be thought police under the hate crime bill, detentions, extrajudicial killings like the 6 people we should get killed or stabbed up in Glasgow, rape and sexual assaults like we've seen being covered up by Nicola Sturgeon in Glasgow as well. So Nicola Sturgeon, and then covered up by the media. So I would suggest also giving preferential treatment to one group over another, even if it's the minority over the majority. Sexual assaults, severe physical injury to civilians, right, we've already seen that, confiscation of civilian populations in ghetto areas, confinement of civilian population. Don't forget, we're also seeing people who don't agree with certain people's political ideology getting kicked out of jobs and harassed, and they're being persecuted by. We already saw the woman who was a Muslim woman, works for The Guardian, saying that it's okay to cancel culture, and there's no legislation in the Parliament to stop that. So you're then able to be harassed out of your jobs as well. Don't forget, and cancelled as well. Confinement of civilian population in ghettos, forcible removals, displacement and deportation of civilian population, deliberate military attacks or threats of attacks on civilians and civilian areas. We've already seen the intimidation of the teacher, that he was kicked out of his job for physical threats. Down in England, use of civilians as human shields, destruction of property, which we've seen with Antifa and Black Lives Matter all over the robbery of personal property, attacks on hospitals, medical personnel and locations with Red Cross or Red Crescent emblems among them. The Commission of Experts added that these practices can constitute crimes against humanity and can be assimilated to specific war crimes. Furthermore, such acts can also fall within the meaning of genocide convention. Don't forget, it's not always about just having genocide as an act of war. It can be other things that are genocidal within the population. So I just thought that people may be to be actually committing genocide if they do these sort of things. Nicola Sturgeon, just so you know. I'm out here.